Welcome. How's it going, people? So my name is Raul. This is Flipping Miami. I have a special guest on the show today, a friend of mine, also in the South Florida market, wholesaler. He's a really good dude. He hosts masterminds for other local wholesalers down here. Actually, probably the best event that I've been to down here for real estate, to be honest. Met a bunch of good people there. So yeah, Nelson is on today. Really good dude. He's genuine. He does a lot of fixing and flipping. He does wholesale as well. He's good at connecting people together. And I brought him on because he's a young dude. He pretty much has no excuses. He's always doing something. You know, even when this economy's bad, even when shit's going up or down, every time I hit him up, he's always doing something, putting together an event, putting together a deal. So I wanted to pick his brain a little bit, get into his story, and see what you guys think. So Nelson, dude, for coming on.
For sure, Raul. Thanks for having me, man. Yeah. So what's up, guys? I'm Nelson Pabon, your friend in all things real estate. That's kind of my little tagline.
What's your Instagram handle, bro? He puts a ton of stuff on Instagram of fixing flips. I saw you put something like you're driving around some properties the other day, or
Yeah.
right?
So like in my Instagram, it is mostly real estate, and I like to show the behind the scenes of rehabs and wholesaling and the actual numbers of what you make.
Yeah.
Not the HGTV numbers. So my Instagram is, I was trying to do, the cool little screen behind you with the name and the whatever. That didn't work out. But it's N as in Nelson, and then my last name, Pabon, Pabon 34. N Pabon 34. That's my Instagram.
N Pabon 34. Cool. I'll put it there in the notes too.
Cool.
But yeah, man. So yeah, Nelson's been investing for a while. So how I like to start is, tell me a little bit. I like to go from the beginning. So tell me, like, kind of. I like to start from like high school. I just to like know the roots is a weird little thing of mine. So tell me, like, in high school, if I would have met you in ninth grade or whatever, or if we would have known each other in high school, who were you? Were you like a shy kid? Did you go to school? Those types of things. You know, did you play sports? What was that like?
Yeah. So I mean, I always been so I play sports. I play soccer mostly. I used to play competitive soccer in high school. I used to play in Josemir Altidore, who plays for the U.S. national team. Well, probably used to.
Oh, sure.
Used to play with them. And high school, pretty much, you will see me in the AP classes. You know, I'm not a genius, but I was pretty good at school. High school. It just came pretty natural to me. So, but I was also doing, since middle school, like little side things to make money. And I think us entrepreneurs or people that like sales, you will know if you're kind of an entrepreneur, because everybody usually has a story that in middle school or something, they sold candy, they sold something. Yeah. So that was me. And I was selling my lunch because I would get lunches for free, and then I would sell it to some kid for more money, but at a discount from him. So that's me. But yeah, in high school.
Costco? Would you buy my Costco?
What I used to sell Airheads, and I used to buy my Costco, the big box, and then sell them for 25 cents a piece.
That was awesome.
So yeah. So that was just me. Pretty good student. After school, went to play soccer. My whole life revolved school, soccer, and then hanging out with the friends. Ended up doing pretty good and got into UF, University of Florida. So that's where I ended up going to college.
And when you were like finishing up high school or kind of like starting to apply to colleges, what was in your mind what you wanted to do? Like, what did you say in your mind? Did you think you were going to be an investor? Did you think you were going to be something in business? What were you thinking at that point?
Honestly, I had no idea what I was going to do. The real estate part was not in me yet. I ended up going to University of Florida because my sister went there. My older sister, she was 3 years older. And I ended up majoring in industrial and systems engineering because that's what she majored in. Really, if I could go back, I should have majored in finance or some type of business because that's what I really liked. But I didn't know what I was going to do with my life. And my dad said, well, if you get this degree, you'll be able to get a job anywhere because industrial and systems engineering is what we call the business side of engineering. So I chose that. So I ended up getting into UF, which was amazing. So that was really fun. And yeah, I studied industrial and systems engineering. I was an okay student, wasn't really trying because I didn't like the subject. I was just good enough to get the grades to be good enough, right? Luckily, I had a mentor in my sister who she worked really hard, and she was always able to tell me where I should go. So I ended up getting internships with Lockheed Martin, Goldman Sachs, IBM, and ended up working for IBM. But before that, during college, I did start getting the bug of, this just engineering kind of sucks. And my dad gave me a book, which kind of everybody starts with Rich Dad, Poor Dad, Robert Kiyosaki. So read the book and I'm like, this makes sense. Maybe I should look into real estate, right? And that's kind of how I started. So I started like digging around.
Yeah, and because UF is not an easy school. For those of you who don't know, University of Florida is a pretty badass school. Nationwide, probably one of the best schools in Florida. Yeah. Nationwide, yeah. It's a pretty badass school. It's kind of hard to get in and stuff. So for you to like go from high school and not even know much of what you're doing, get in and pass, that's a pretty big accomplishment. And at what point right after that did you realize like, oh, like was it while you were studying for classes that you realized, okay, this shit's not for me? Or like at what point were you like, okay, I think that I should do something different than what I'm studying? Like when did that happen?
Yeah, I mean, I think right away. Like I did it, but because I could, and I didn't know what else to do. But I mean, I had already picked something, and I was just like, I'm gonna go with it. Plus, I ended up making friends, and I was kind of good at getting the grades. And then what changed really was when I did my first internship, which was actually engineering based with Lockheed Martin, and I was like, yo, this life sucks. Like, I mean, it was boring. So I was like, nah, next year I'm not going to do an internship in engineering. I'm going to look for something else. And that's why I ended up going with Goldman Sachs. I was like, man, I want to get into with the banks. I want to do something with business. Okay. Ended up getting in with Goldman Sachs, but as an engineer, they don't hire you for finance gigs. They hire you for operations because you're an engineer. So I went to Goldman Sachs. That shit sucked too because it was like an engineering-based job in operations, and it was boring as hell. But I was like, man, I want to get into like the cool part, the sales and trading, what we see in the movies, like hedge funds and like, making the millions of bucks. Shit. Yeah, that. But they're like, no, you don't have the degree, and if you wanted to get into that side, you have to have a major, an MBA, and all that. So I was like, crap, this sucks. So then the next year, I ended up working for IBM in sales. So you see, I gradually moved from engineering to like, I got to go more to their business side. And then I ended up doing sales for IBM. But during that internship, like it wasn't structured correctly. So I had a ton of downtime. Like, I mean, a shit ton of downtime.
Really?
So during that time is when I got my first course ever in real estate. And instead of doing stuff for IBM, I would just start learning about real estate. So I followed Tim Taylor, which was the first coach I ever got. And then he put me into Ron LeGrand, which is like the OG of wholesaling real estate.
I think he just passed away, actually.
No way, dude. Ron?
Yeah.
I still get his email, so there's no way Ron died.
one of these like OG coaches passed away recently.
Oh, I think it was Carlton Sheets.
Carlton Sheets.
Yeah, yeah. So,
Ron, you're still. If you're listening, Ron, if you ever see this, my bad, you're still alive.
Yeah. Poor Ron is like, what? Hell no.
This name killed me.
Yeah. So basically, that was kind of my beginning, because you got to start somewhere, and it all starts with curiosity. Right? Yeah. Like, I read the book of Rich Dad Poor Dad. I'm like, I want to learn real estate. But with the Robert Kiyosaki people, or like, when you start reading the books, they don't really teach you how to do it. They teach you the concepts. Like, hey, this is why real estate is good. You're like, damn, well, I don't know how to do it. How do I buy a house? How do I do this? They just say you need to cash flow or whatever. And one day while I was on Facebook, some guy ran an ad on the side. It says, Robert Kiyosaki students get 50% off this real estate course. So I was like, okay, well, I mean, I'm a Robert Kiyosaki student. Click. He had a squeeze page, good video. Basically, the guy was a real estate investor from Ohio who had flipped over 300 houses, and he was selling a course for $497. So that course, I ended up buying it, and that's what I studied during my time in IBM doing the internship.
Wow.
During work and after work. I started gobbling this stuff up because I'm like, yo, this shit makes sense. Like, I could make money doing this. So the guy taught wholesaling, rehabbing, options, lease options. I mean, probably I could have learned everything I needed to with that course. But what happens is that you think you're missing something else, and you keep searching for more stuff, even though the simple recipe was right there in that $500 course. But, I got the course. I tried to do it. wasn't successful at the beginning because I went back to college and kept partying and kind of tried to do it, but not really. And then little by little, I was trying to just learn it. And when I moved to Atlanta to work for IBM full time, that was like 2013. Since I got a job in sales, again, I work from home. I was like doing the real estate thing on the side, but I never wanted to do wholesaling, which is what I do now. I thought wholesaling was too easy, and I didn't want to get into rehabbing because that was too hard. So I was like, let me go after the lease option, owner financing, creative stuff, because that was the cool thing.
Oh, I didn't even know that's how you started.
Yeah, that's how I started. So back then, with the same economy that we're having right now, Ron LeGrand and all these guys were pitching creative financing, which is what people are pitching like crazy right now, right? Subject to owner financing, all that.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh, let me do that because that seems cool. And I was like, all right, let me try it. So I tried it, but they don't tell you is that it's not easy. Because now you gotta, and I remember telling you this when you were trying to do a deal. When you're doing creative financing stuff, especially lease options or doing a wholesale lease option, there's a lot of education involved, both on the seller side and on the buyer side. And your expectations of, oh yeah, someone's gonna give me $10,000 down for this house because it's nice. That's not how it works. It's not that easy. The wholesaling is easy. It's like, I know what my buyers are going to pay at. I just gotta get under that, and it's cash. I pay you this, I sell it for this. Lease options, the other stuff is like, okay, well, I got to make sure the seller understands that I'm going to pay this little bit of down payment and this little monthly payment, and then I'm going to make money in the front end, the middle, and the back end. That's how they pitch it. We're making money everywhere. Then you try to go do it, and if you don't have a team, it takes a lot of time. Yeah. Like a ton of time. And finding the buyers, even like, oh, buyers are going to call you all day. Yeah, finding qualified buyers, good luck with that. So I tried to do that for the longest. I bought courses from Ron LeGrand. I ended up being mentored by Ron LeGrand.
Oh, you did? How was that?
Yeah, well, I ended up I ended up being mentored by his right hand guy, Scott Ulmer.
Okay.
And Scott used to run Ron's entire business when they were doing, the pretty house side of the business, because Ron doesn't really do the ugly house side anymore, which is like wholesaling and rehabbing. Back then, he kind of stopped that. He was pitching because, Ron is in information marketing, which at the end of the day, guys, a lot of guys are in info marketing and they'll make more money in info marketing than in real estate.
1,000%.
Right? He was pitching, a course called Big Chunks, Big Something, I forgot, which was basically do lease options and creative stuff on really high-end houses because you get higher down payments. Yeah. So if you could negotiate, a lease option on a
$1 million home.
Yeah, like I was going after $1 million homes in Atlanta. Yeah, I was going after $1 million
Atlanta.
Homes. Yeah, I lived in Atlanta, right? So that's how I know Atlanta. Okay. I moved from UF to Atlanta to work for IBM. So I became really well known in Atlanta for the guy that was getting $1 million homes under contract with lease options because I was very involved and I knew a lot of people. The thing is that no one knew that I wasn't selling them. I could get them under contract, which kind of usually is the easy part because if sellers are motivated, they'll do whatever you want. But the buying side, like selling the deal to a buyer, was very hard. So I got $1 million houses under contract, and I was trying to make the equity spreads on the down payment, the middle, and the back, right? Like, and then sell it for more in the back end. So I got that course, was able to get it done. Got a $2 million house under contract, got a castle under contract. But at the end of the day, buyers were like, I don't need the owners, I don't need the lease purchase, I don't need that. I'll just buy it cash. I'm not gonna pay you a premium for this. So they never wanted to do it. And then I tried to do it on lower end houses, and those people didn't have the down payment, or they weren't qualified, and you got to qualify them correctly. Yeah. So I spent like a year, 2 years just, tackling that stuff and calling myself for sale by, because in the lease option also, what they tell you is like, oh, well, marketing is free because just go on Zillow and call these for sale by owners, right? You don't got to really do direct mail. You don't got to do, because there's sellers out there on Craigslist trying to rent their houses, do all this stuff. And you just call them, so you don't really have to spend money on direct mail. So that's what I was doing.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I was calling, and I was able to pitch them, but it gets really tiring really fast, especially when you don't see money coming in.
It's tough. And for those of you who are listening and don't know what a lease option is, because I know we just kind of, I'll try to simplify it and I'll see if you can help me with this. Basically, a lease option is You offer a lease, so you offer a monthly rent to the owner. Let's say that house is for rent, or let's call it a house for sale. And you tell the owner, hey, I'm going to buy it, but I'm going to rent it off of you for, call it 2 years, for the price of $1,000 per month. And in 2 years, I'm going to have the option to purchase it for, I don't know, $200,000. So basically, you're offering them a lease of option to purchase it in a specific time. And the way, from my understanding, that you can make money is, let's say, okay, Mr. Seller, I'm going to lease it for $1,000 per month, but I'm going to give you $0 down or $2,000 down.
Yeah.
And then I'm going to buy it for $200,000 in 2 years. So they accept $2,000 down, and then you then wholesale that property for $10,000 down, and you make $8,000 theoretically. And let's say you negotiate the payment, your next buyer to pay you $1,500, and different ways you can make money. I'm definitely over some, might be explaining it a bit wrong, but from my understanding, is that how you see it now?
Yeah, pretty much. People call it different these days because, like I said, in info marketing, Sean Terry calls it the down payment arbitrage. I mean, everybody's got a different name to it because they got to make money selling the course, right? So basically, yeah, that's what it is. The lease purchase or rent to own or whatever you want to call it, because there's a bunch of names you could call it, involves three things. One, the down payment that you're going to give someone, the monthly payment that you're going to pay throughout your option period, and then the purchase price, like you just mentioned. So the idea is the way you buy it from a seller or negotiate with a seller has to be better than what you're going to sell it for to the end buyer, which is, low down payment for you, the lowest monthly payment you could pay, and the lowest purchase price you can. And then what you do is, now that you have those three, like you mentioned, let's say I give someone $2,000 down, $1,000 a month, and $200,000 for 2 years. Now I got to go resell it. If I want to stay in the middle, meaning I want to collect the monthly payment, the middle cash flow, and the back end payment, then I will sell it for $10,000 down. So I give, out of the $10,000, I give the seller $2,000. I kept $8,000 at the beginning, so I just made $8,000 up front. Then I'm paying the seller $1,000 a month right now, but I'm going to rent it out to somebody for $1,500 a month. So I'm making $500 a month cash flow. And the purchase price I'm paying is $200. So I'm going to sell it to them for, let's say, $225. Right. And then in the back end, I make the spread on the purchase price. Now, there's other stuff you can do to increase the cash flow.
Renegotiate or whatever.
You can do whatever you want there. But the main criteria also is your option period. If it's 2 years, your buyer, because with the seller, you agree you'll buy it in 2 years. With your buyer, you have to say, hey, you have to buy it in 1 year. Yeah. Because they always have to cash you out before you have to cash out the seller.
Yeah.
Right.
And sometimes they might not buy it.
And sometimes they might not buy it. So you make your real money is going to be the down payment that you get up front. Yeah. Right. So you got to get as much as you can up front. That's possible. So as you can see, there's a lot of moving pieces. So
yeah, it's a very even just talking about it, it's kind of like we're just sharing like maybe 10% of what lease options do. But it is, I know Joe McCall's like the guy I think of when it comes to lease options.
Joe was one of my mentors.
Oh, really? Yeah. So
I've paid a bunch of mentors. Damn. A bunch.
Good. I actually want to talk about that for a little bit. But yeah, if you guys want to learn more about lease options, either hit up Nelson, he knows a ton, or Joe McCall is a pretty good dude. I'm sure online he has some course or something. But I definitely think there's money somewhere, somehow in it. But you have to look at it a little bit more pessimistic than some of the people make it seem to be.
Yes.
And now, so all right, so you started with the lease options for about 2 years in Georgia, doing this, doing that. And then, so let's fast forward a little bit. I know right now we're in Corona, but let's say, 2 months ago, what does business look like now? What do you mean with wholesale?
Yeah. So I was doing the lease options. Then when I couldn't do a single deal, I ended up getting a wholesale deal accidentally by doing a yellow letter campaign looking for lease options. And this lady called me in Atlanta, told me, hey, I'll sell you a house for $12,000. I live in Jacksonville. And I'm like, oh, shoot, $12,000 sounds cheap. I ended up wholesaling and I sold it for 27, something like that. So I made money in like 2 weeks. So that's when I transitioned to and then 2 weeks after that, I did another wholesale, same thing accidentally, and I made 38. So in like a month, I made like $50,000. So that's when it clicked to me, and which is what I've been doing since then. Is like, all right, I've been killing myself trying to do these lease option things for 2 years with no success. And I was always saying that wholesaling was so easy and I don't want to do it because that's not cool. But I just made 50 grand in a month. Yeah, maybe I should stick to this wholesaling game. Right. So then that's what for the past before Corona and everything, what I've been doing was pretty much strictly wholesaling. That was the business because it just made sense. Like, all right, I get it cheap and I sell it for more. And then I had to learn because when you learn from Ron LeGrand and all these other mentors, you're stuck with the formulas which you were doing back then in 2015, 2014, and all that. It was ARV times 70% minus repairs minus your assignment fee is what you should be offering. Well, I came down to South Florida and I saw guys like selling deals like way higher. I'm like, yo, these guys are idiots. They don't know what they're doing in business. No, the issue is I was the idiot because they were offering more to the seller, getting deals under contract, and still were able to sell it. So the thing I learned at that point was like, yo, and I learned it from Peter Vexelman because he was another mentor. Peter Vexelman, I know, right? Block, yo, bro, it's ridiculous the money I've spent. So I mean, I remember when Peter was my mentor and I had come down to South Florida. I'm like, Peter, I'm trying to get these deals under contract, but I can't get them under contract. Like, it seems like everybody beats me and they're selling. He's like, Nelson, forget ARV times 0.7 minus repairs. I'm like, what? He's like, forget that. Do ARV times 0.8. I'm like, ARV times 0.8 minus repairs, right? Peter's like, no, ARV times 0.8. I'm like, that's way too high. He's like, get it under contract, take it out to the market, let the market tell you how much they're willing to pay, and then renegotiate. Because you will never be a real estate investor until you learn how to renegotiate. That's what he told me. I'm like, oh, damn, okay. So then literally a week after, I got a deal where if I would have used my old formulas, it was a small 2-bedroom, 1-bath in Sunrise. If I would have used the formula, I had to be at 55. The guy wanted 75 for a 2-1. These days, shoot, 2-1, 75 in Sunrise, man, it's a steal. But, back then, you're like, oh, I don't know. I got under contract for 75 just because Peter told me, forget the formula. I'm like, all right. I tried to wholesale it, and I sold it for 82, so I made $7 grand.
Okay.
After I talked to the seller's like, you know why I went with you? Is because some idiot offered me 55. That idiot was following the ARV times 0.7 minus reverse formula.
That's funny as hell.
So that's when I learned, you know what? I got to learn my market. I got to learn what people are willing to pay because South Florida is different than whatever other markets there might be. In other markets, you might have to do ARV times 0.7 minus repairs because they're buying $100,000 houses. So you have to get it really low because there's no margin to make any money, right? So that's kind of how I transitioned to wholesaling and little by little.
When you start transitioning to wholesaling from the lease option stuff, because I heard you say earlier that you got that deal by accident by doing mail. What was like your first strategies when you first started wholesale? Did you basically what helped you get more wholesale deals? Was it mail? Was it calling? Mail. Was it specific mentor? It was mail.
So 2015, cold calling wasn't existent. RVNs wasn't existing. Text wasn't existent. I mean, maybe it was, but maybe very few guys were doing it and they kept it hush-hush if they were doing it. Everybody was doing direct mail. And I shot my shot with direct mail using the Chris Chico postcard because Peter Vexelman gave it to me. Yeah, Peter gave it to me. He's like, hey, use this postcard. Yeah, the third notice.
The third notice, not fiction. The third notice postcard. Yeah,
yeah. That one gets a lot of calls, but a lot of angry calls. But who cares? It gets you calls. So I ended up becoming actually pretty good with this direct mail stuff because my numbers at that point were like, for every $1,000 I spend, I will make 10,000. Right? Like, get to spend $1,000 in direct mail, you make a $10,000 deal. Cool. And it's just me by myself. So I started doing direct mail. Started getting deals. I'm like, oh, this is pretty good. And that's kind of how I started. Literally direct mail until like maybe 2 years ago when a lot of people started doing cold calling, and then I transitioned to cold calling. And that's pretty much been the stuff I've always done, direct mail, cold calling. And now that I've built a network, like you said, with masterminds and stuff, deals kind of just come to me now. So I don't have to do that much of that stuff anymore.
And yeah, that's good. And I remember, I think when we first spoke, or when we spoke about, we first kind of met, I think it was maybe like 2 years ago or a year and a half ago. I remember like speaking to you about a deal or something, and you were partners with Eddie, or, you're working with him. So let me ask you this, man, because I'm actually in the I've been putting it a little bit, but I'm actually in the transition of going from the office, virtual, things like this. And I know that we've spoken about it. And there's many different opinions. It's an interesting topic, I think, in any business, but it's very interesting in real estate wholesale. The people that talk about virtual and appointments and phone appointments and office, whatever. But what's your take? Because from what I know about you, you're virtual. You don't have an office. Is it just you right now? Did you have I think you said you had a mentee that you were helping, or what does that part look like? Like, do you work with people in the day to day? Like, what is that? Are you completely by yourself?
Yeah, so it's just me right now and a VA. So, like you mentioned, I used to be partners with Eduardo, who's a big wholesaler down here, right? And my transition has always been being a solo guy when I started, and then I started doing a lot of JVs. So people got to know me because I was doing direct mail and I was being pretty successful. So I partnered with Craig Martinez. Craig brought me in, gave me an office in his office, and be like, hey, we'll do direct mail together and we'll split it, the profits. So I ended up working with Craig on a JV basis. We spent $8,000 together, and we turned that 8,000 into 105,000.
Wow!
So that worked, and it was only JV. It wasn't partnership. It was like JV. We spend money together. We split.
What do you mean JV? So like you would get the deal, the contract, he would sell it, or?
Yeah. So basically, we both put the money 50-50 for marketing. Then I was the acquisition guy, and he was the disposition guy, and that was it. And then whatever profits were made, 50-50 on the profits, right? Then I did that for a couple of times. Then I ended up doing that with Andrew Liu, which was, Alex Pardos's guy, right? Andrew?
I know.
You don't know Andrew? You know Alex.
I know Alex, yeah.
So and Andrew's the one with long hair that sells all his deals, but whatever. So I ended up doing some JVs with him. Same thing, 50-50 on marketing. I acquired them, and technically I sold a lot of them because it was in Broward. And then with Eduardo, when I met him, he's like, hey, what do you do? I told him again, I do direct mail. These are my numbers. And he always asks, well, if you're getting those numbers, why aren't you spending more money in marketing to get more money, right? So we kind of hit it off, and he's like, hey, you got to stop being a bum and doing it by yourself and build a business. So I'm like, all right, well, I've never done that. Let's try it. So we opened up an office together. So we did 50-50. He still had his business. I had my business. But we were doing 50-50 on some JV stuff, and we had an office together. So we hired people. For the first time I started hiring, we had acquisitions guys. Yeah, I had acquisitions guys. We had the office. We had what, technically everybody wants, which is, the glam of having the office and a bunch of people in the office and all that stuff, right? So we built that. We started doing cold calling. I was the acquisition guy. Like always, I'm always the acquisition guy because I guess I'm kind of good at it, right? And then we started doing deals, and he taught me with Eduardo, I was actually able to take deals down, and we did some rehabs. So he kind of taught me the rehabbing game, but I learned it a lot by being at the rehabs. And then I got over the fear of doing rehabs. I'm like, oh, this is not that hard. I thought it was way harder. So that helped me because that's how I started getting into rehabbing. And then me and Eduardo, after we were partners for a year, we split. So he's doing his thing and I'm doing my thing. We're still like amazing friends. I mean, we go to lunch all the time. But financially, it didn't make sense because what I've noticed is that unless you're making a boatload of money, having a partner that's 50-50 makes absolutely no freaking sense, dude. I mean, after expenses and after all that, let's say you're doing $1 million a year and you have $200,000 in expenses, you're making 800. And then you divide it by 2, you're making 400. I could do 400 doing 10 flips, making $40,000 by myself without having to deal with anybody else.
Yeah.
Right. So it's like, for me, financially, it wasn't making any sense. And for me, also, the hardest part of the business, which we all know, maybe not right now it's a little different, but is the acquisition. The acquisition part of getting the deal, getting under contract, training your guys, following up until you get a deal. That takes freaking a ton of time.
Yeah.
And if you get a really good deal, I have a list, so I don't really need a dispo guy anymore, right? A lot of the times that I was doing JVs were like, hey, you be the acquisition and I'll sell it because I have a better list than you. I don't care whose list it is. You will never sell it for way, way more than me, right? Let's say I could sell it for, make a $10,000 profit. Okay, that means you have to sell it for $10,000 more. We have to make a $20,000 profit for me to make the same amount of money if I did it myself. Right. So that's what you don't understand when people offer you that JV. Is like, hey, I'll be the dispo person. No one's ever gonna sell it for way higher than you. You're gonna make more money with them.
Interesting.
By them selling it. It won't, like, trust me. I've done it with a bunch of people. I'm like, wait, I ended up getting them and ended up selling the deals because I was really good at Broward, and that's where most of the deals are done. And if I could sell a deal for a certain price, you could never sell it for way higher than me. Maybe you sell it for $5,000 more. Okay, $5,000 more. I would have made more money if I would have just done it myself. So I started learning this stuff.
I think you hit on a ton of key points. I know, like, we talk and we're both in the business, so we like all the terms, but for those of you who are not understanding or who kind of like, what the fuck, what did he just say? Basically, he started with the lease options, then he went to mail. He got the specific postcard that another guy in our market created. His name is Chris Chico. And basically it's a postcard that says, third notice, your house is about to transfer deeds or something like that. And it brings a lot of calls, a ton of calls, but some people are a little angry. But anyways, he got going. He got good at that. He partnered with a couple different people until he realized, like, hey, I could just do this on my own. And that's a really good point. I always mention to people, I've been asked maybe like 2 or 3 times from other wholesalers, like, dude, I have an opportunity to partner with somebody else. What do you think? I said, unless you're not going to go like 4 or 5X, don't partner, because it's in wholesale specifically. It's just, you're one, 2, 3 deals away from making the same amount of money than if you were to partner and do 300 deals. So it's like, you have to really partners have to really mesh. And you got to go like huge, my opinion. Like if you're not doing 20 plus deals a month, you shouldn't even have a partner.
Yeah. 100%. I mean, like you mentioned, I have mentees, right? So a lot of my business now is, I'm doing more rehab than wholesaling. Why? Because, I don't do $30,000 rehabs. If I do a rehab, I try to make, 50 to 60.
Okay.
And, and then I don't even have to spend money on marketing because people bring me those deals, right? A lot of people there's no deals on the market. Well, if you know the right people, some people have good deals that you can make 40, 50, 60 on. Easy. So I don't have to spend money on marketing. Now I figure out how to do, I found the contractor, which is the hardest part of rehabbing. My contractor's a beast that works Monday to Saturday, and I never have to keep an eye on him because he's always there. I ended up having my dad manage the rehabs. So I'm really kind of hands off on the rehabs. I just find them and finance them, right? So I'm living life like that. And then I have mentees that, I teach them like the ins and out. Like I don't charge, well, I mean, I should, but the guys I've had, it's like I never charged them up front. I told them, hey, look, I'll teach you everything, but we'll go 50-50 on the first 3 deals, right? So then I teach them everything, acquisitions, dispo, blah, blah, blah. And then they feed me deals, right? And then we do deals together, or maybe I'll just buy them off them because I want to rehab them, right? So that's what I've been doing. And, a lot of my mentees are successful. One of the best mentee I had in January closed a deal. I made $176,000 in a wholesale deal. Right? I've never done that.
You told me about that.
I've never done that. He ended up closing it, right?
Wow.
And I was the one that ended up selling it, right? So the benefit also is that, in this case with mentees, when you're just starting, I can't sell your deals because you don't even have a buyer's list. But at that point I do, right? And I'm teaching you, and I'm acquiring the deals also because I go in appointments with them. Like basically you could say they're my acquisitions guys on the phone, talking to the sellers, pre-screening the leads. Then they call me and be like, hey, I think this might be a good deal. I look at it. I'm like, yeah, this is a good deal. Let's go. And then I go out with them so they can see how it's done. And I get them under contract, right? And then I get on the contract and then I show them, okay, this is how we're going to sell it. And then we try to sell it.
Gotcha.
So that's kind of the biz now.
That's your biz. You got the mentoring side. You got some students you take on one-on-one. You help them get deals. You help them sell them. You split the profits. Then you have your fix and flip biz, and then you might wholesale some deals you get from your students or JV. I know you sent some of my deals out, and I think you sent some of Tal's deals out. So you probably JV deals.
So since like you mentioned, I have a mastermind and all that stuff. And the mastermind, luckily, we've built it to it's only high quality guys doing a lot of deals.
Yeah.
That are in the business. Well, since I build a relationship with those guys, I get their deals before everybody else. And then I'm able to sell them and sell it for them and make, we're not making a killing, but we're doing, Jim Van Dyke numbers, 2, 3K a deal, but I didn't spend any money. I just made a few phone calls. Right. So we're kind of like a disposition arm for people's deals that if they need to sell it. So basically, right now I don't have any overhead cost. Like, there's no office, there's no nothing. I work from home. There's really no marketing cost right now. I'll go back to it again, but there's no marketing cost. I just get deals thrown at me, and I'm like, all right, what do I want to do with it? And the good thing is, with real estate, you can make such big spreads on a rehab or maybe on a wholesale that I don't need a million deals. Like, I have my lifestyle is very low. Like, I don't spend a lot of money. So
yeah, no, and that's so interesting, man, because people, yeah, and you lived it, and so have I. Live in the office and the people and the stuff, and there's so many different opinions and all. And I feel like no matter where you are, let's say you're just starting out, and you haven't even gotten a deal yet, but like your ambition is to get an office. I'm not going to discourage you. I think you should. Honestly, I think there's money there.
Yeah.
But if your ambition is to work from home, I think you should do that too. Like, you can go both ways and make money both ways. One of my mentors in Arizona, he crushes it with an office. I mean, he really does make good money, but it's not for everybody. So it's interesting to hear the story, especially someone down here in South Florida who's kind of done the same. And let me ask you this, Mike. I heard you mention earlier about like the mentors, and I think people that are watching this probably, if they're hearing me, they're probably hearing other podcasts or probably taking some courses. You've had a bunch of different mentors and some big names, LeGrand, Peter, all these guys they charge big money. Yeah. What is I don't want to like talk gossip or anything, but what is your take on having all these different mentors, and like, what was your biggest learning experience from all of it,
Yeah, for sure. So I definitely do think a mentor is extremely important.
Yeah.
So my first mentor, and I'll tell you the numbers. The first mentor I got, I paid him $6,000. That was Tim Taylor. The guy I bought the $500 course from. The upsell was be my mentee or whatever, mentorship for a whole year. His was a whole year, so that was great. And he was like a 2-hour call every week. These days it's like 30 minutes. It sucks. But I paid him $6,000. Then, it's not bad. It wasn't bad, actually. And he was pretty good. Then I went with what'd you say?
$60,000, right? Or six?
Six.
Oh, it's not bad at all.
I paid him $6,000. Yeah. Then I paid Ron LeGrand, when I was trying to do the lease option stuff, $9,000.
Okay.
With him, is what most guys do now is, they send you some courses, whatever, and then you get to talk to those the mentors for 30 minutes once a week. But what the hell are you going to do with 30 minutes once a week? Right? Then I paid Joe McCall, which was partnering with Peter Vexelman, $15,000.
Ah.
And that was a call once a week for an hour.
Okay.
Right? And those were a little different calls because it was just basically Joe and Peter spitballing, talking about what's going on in their business. And then you got to ask questions. And they weren't really teaching because most of the guys there kind of knew already the business. You're not talking about ARVs. You're not talking about any of that stuff. You're talking about like strategic stuff. And then the last guy I paid, which is kind of trying to scale because you're already in the business, was Joe Dillon.
Okay.
Right. And that was already when you were already doing business and you were trying to scale. Joe was able to build a multi-million-dollar business, and I paid him to try to learn how he did it. And I understand how they were able to do it because it's a lot of work and a lot of details. So I say all of that is because if you're going to get a mentor, if you're just starting off, one, you can start off for free on YouTube University. You absolutely can.
Agreed.
For free on YouTube University, you can do it, right? It's just going to take you a lot longer than if you got a mentor. And if you're going to get a mentor, I suggest you get them local to your city.
Yes.
Because the reason my mentees are pretty successful is because I go with them to the appointments. They could call me. I'll go to lunch with them, and we could do it. Ron LeGrand doesn't know who the hell I am. Peter Vexelman, if I call him, he might know who I am, but he doesn't really know who I am. We're not friends. What you're trying to do once you get a mentor is have them become your friend, because eventually you're trying to do business with them in the future together.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I do deals with my mentees now. Like, they bring me deals. They're like, yeah, I'll JV with you. I'll do a rehab with you. That's what you want. You're not trying to get the information. Like, the information is free these days. Like, when I started, there wasn't this type of it. There was some information, but not like now. Now it's like everybody's coaching, and it's pretty simple. The business is simple. It's just you need a mentor that you could talk to regularly to help you on specific pivot points that you might have. The good thing with my guys is that they have access to my cell phone at all times. Now, I could tell you it's not beneficial to me, right? Because people will call you 24/7. That's the reason Joe McCall and all the other gurus give you a specific 1 hour time slot, one time a week. Why? Because they value their time. But what the hell? And it's usually a group coaching. So you're doing group coaching for 1 hour, 30 minutes, and you get 1 or 2 questions answered. And really, you didn't get anything answered. With me, you have access to me 24/7. And it's really not that beneficial to me because I'm taking calls all day while I'm trying to do my own business. But it's something that if you're looking for a mentor, that would be very beneficial, right? Because if something pops off, you want to be able to have access like, hey, this happened. I need to answer it right now. And then I go in and I answer it, right? So that's my suggestion for mentors. Definitely get one, but you got to find the right one.
Yeah.
The one that's actually doing the business, one. The one that could just provide more value than just like, hey, this is what the formulas are. No, it's got to be specific things. Like I've been through deals that maybe you're going to go through a deal. I could show you the way you should not be doing the deal or why you shouldn't be doing the deal.
Yeah.
Not just, hey, just make a couple calls and do this and that. That's not a mentor.
I agree, man. That's huge because I'm a huge advocate of mentors. When I first started, I got a mentor, Jim. He's local. Jim Van Dyke.
Yeah.
I don't even know if he's mentoring people anymore, but I got him, and it was a similar thing. And it was so important that he was local, and it was so important that I was able to text him. And I still JV deals with Jim even to this day, and he's lent me money on deals. Like there's so many things. So yeah, we do have a friendly relationship. And when I mentored students, I'm actually going to interview one on my podcast, I think tomorrow. And dude, it's just like, it changes the game. I don't know why people, I don't know. Maybe this is a good question to ask you that you've had so many, because we think similar. Why do you think that people give so much pushback on getting a coach or a mentor? Why do you think that is?
I think because these days, there's just so many out there that are just a money grab. Right? A lot of, because there is, right? You have to find the right mentor that actually wants to see you succeed. Like all the guys that kind of go with me, I want to see them succeed. Now they got to put in the work, right? Because since I'm not charging up front, if they don't put in the work, yeah, they can leave.
Which is dangerous, man.
Which is very dangerous. Like
I did the charging up front thing for a while, and
it's terrible. I mean, a lot of them never do anything.
Yeah.
Like I should charge like. Moving forward, most likely I'll be like, you got to pay $1,000 or $2,000 upfront, and then you get it back once we do a deal. Exactly. But if you didn't want to put any work in, then why wasted my time just trying to help you? So you got to put in the work. It's got to be something where, if I tell you what to do, you're gonna go do it, and you got to understand it's gonna be hard. It's like a rocket. I always do like a rocket ship. I think they say like, most of the fuel that a rocket uses to go up to space is used at takeoff. That's what you got to do at the beginning when you're starting new. Like, you got to go full force at the beginning. You can't just be like, let me try to do a couple calls. Let me send 5 mailers. You're not going to go anywhere, right? Mm-hmm. You got to go balls to the wall. You're going to get told no a bunch of times. You're not going to get a deal for probably 6 months, 12 months. Like, it's going to take a long time. It took me 2 years to get my first deal. So I'd have no sympathy for anybody that cries. Yeah, well, I told you, the lease options and all this. I was all over the place, right? Now, after I started doing wholesaling, I got the deals consistently. But when I was just like trying to do stuff, like you try to pivot to so many different strategies because one strategy doesn't work. And I get this from my mentees all the time. It's like, Nelson, you told me to do cold calling, but I think I'm going to do Facebook marketing now. And I think I'm going to do direct mail marketing now. Oh, I think I'm going to go door knocking now. Bro. I always tell them, stick to one thing until you get it. Yeah. That was me. I tell them that was me. I was doing lease options, and then it's like, oh, lease options didn't quite work. Let me do subject twos. Oh, that didn't quite work. Let me do wholesaling, but I do direct mail, but maybe I should do cold calling now. Like, you start pivoting because you think you're missing something. Yeah. But you're not missing anything. What you're missing is full force, massive action, like we always talk about, on one thing until you get the result.
Right. I think in the book Think and Grow Rich, I think in the first chapter it talks about how the miner was 7 feet away from his gold. He ended up selling the land, and the next guy that bought it
just dug for 7 feet and found $70 million worth of gold.
No.
And I see that so many times, man. Like, yeah, dude, just all right, you pick cold calling, you pick direct mail, you pick wholesale, you pick fix and flipping, whatever. But stick with it, man. You might be just 7 feet away from the gold. You understand? And like, I even have a friend today that he, in a different business, he was good in his cold call. He had a cold call business. He was good in that business. It wasn't in real estate. And now he stopped that and he calls me every like 6 months with a different business. And I'm like, dude, I'm sorry. I know you're smart, but I don't take you serious, dude. You've had 6 business ideas in the last 2 years. Like I don't know what to tell you. You know what I'm saying? Like, what if I invest with you and 6 months later you're out? So I would say dig 7 feet deeper. You might find that gold. Honestly,
yes.
You might find it. So
100%. And people got to understand the amount of effort it's going to take. They think, because they hear on YouTube, right? Like I said, you can go on YouTube and it's for free. Oh, you could do cold calling. You're going to get a deal. You got to understand that when I was doing cold calling, my guys were doing 1,000 dials a day, one person on a dialer, 1,000 dials to get 5 leads. And it would take 25 leads, meaning you're talking to a shit ton of people. At least were like people that say yes. That means you're talking to about 120 to 130 people a day. And only 5 of those are going to say, yes, I'm interested in something. Right. Yeah. And then you're going to need 25 to 30 to get one deal under contract. So that's the amount of effort you got to put. Imagine doing 1,000 dials, talk to 120 people a day. So you're talking to like 600, 700 people a week to maybe get one deal. And you're just starting off and you're thinking, oh, I called 20 people and I haven't gotten a deal.
Right.
You have the right expectations. Same thing with direct mail. Oh, I sent 100 pieces of mail and I spent $200, $300 and I didn't get anything. Bro, I got friends spending $30,000 in mail. Well, they just cut back, but 100,000 pieces a month, right?
Yeah.
Like you got to understand that it's going to take a lot of effort. It's going to take a lot of time, but you got to know that one is possible because you're looking at 2 guys right now that are doing it, right? You got to understand that it is possible. And when you get it, the first deal, you're going to be like, oh my God, I can do this again. And then you do it again. And then like we all say, you're only one deal away from making 50 grand. And all of a sudden your whole life changes. You're like, holy crap. Like one of the guys that I mentor a little bit, but he was actually doing the business before he met me. It's a 19-year-old kid that in 5 months has made over 120 grand. And I paid him for a deal he sold to me as rehab. I paid him 50 grand on that assignment.
Wow.
I let him assign it to me and I paid him 50 grand. So imagine at 19, his whole life changed. Like for him, it's like, I just made 120 grand while in college. Well, I had $5 in college.
Yeah.
Right. So, but you got to stick with it. This kid's really smart. He makes the calls. He goes driving for dollars. He's consistent.
He puts the work, man. Put the work.
You just got to do the work.
That's because you've been through a bunch already, and you're relatively dude. How old are you, by the way? I don't even know.
I'm 30 now.
Oh, 30. And what advice would you give yourself when you were, say, 18? What advice would you give your 18-year-old self? I think so. You're just finishing high school, starting college, and knowing what you know today, business, real estate, education. What would you tell yourself?
I would tell myself probably have fun in your early 20s because, I mean, eventually that fun is going to disappear. Like it starts dwindling off because you start becoming more focused on business and you got to provide for yourself and your family if you're going to have a family. So have fun, but also don't waste time. Because in your 20s, there's a book. I never read it, but I got the premise of it just from listening to this one lady. It's a book called The Defining Decade. And the defining decade is your 20s. That is where you're like, you will see some guys either try a bunch of stuff when you're young, try a bunch of stuff and figure out what works. Because, I mean, I tried engineering. I figured out that wasn't for me. I tried sales. I figured out that wasn't for me. I tried the corporate world, and I figured out that wasn't for me. I was lucky and blessed that I found real estate, and it made sense, and I just happened to be good at it, right? So my suggestion is go out there, try stuff. If you're 18, 19, you don't have to be a millionaire tomorrow. If you feel you're good at real estate, go work for somebody or work for a big company and learn this thing. And you don't need to be the guy making a 50 grand assignment like the 19-year-old. Is it going to happen? You can. But if you're that young and you want to learn it and you don't have like the money or the resources or you don't have the discipline, because a lot of it takes discipline of making calls, working every day. When you're 19, 20 in your early 20s, you don't really have any discipline. All you're thinking about is let me go out and party, right? So go work for a big company. Like you could go work for Raul for free and be okay. Like Gary Vee says, go work for free.
Yeah.
I mean, the amount of knowledge you're going to pick up from somebody in 1 year, you could, by the age of 2021, you'd be like, oh, I know this stuff already. So then you could go build it. But I mean, go work for a big company that's doing 10, 20 deals a month and learn everything from them. And then figure out if maybe you'll figure out that, hey, man, I don't want to be the guy that builds the company. I don't mind being the top sales guy. I'm making a shit ton of money. That could be you, right? Like you don't have to be the entrepreneur that risk it. Because like you, Raul, me, we're risking money on marketing. We had offices. We have employees. Like it's risk. We might spend $10,000 in marketing, and that might disappear. You might not get a deal, right?
Maybe all the education you paid for, all the education, all that stuff.
Education. So that takes a lot of investment, and maybe that's not your personality. Maybe you're just like, hey, I'm really good at sales, and I just want to be a top sales guy, and that's what you'll do. But I will tell you also in your 20s, invest in yourself, right? Invest in yourself. If you really want to do it, get yourself a mentor, or like I said, work for them for free. That's a way of payment because there's got to be a value exchange. The reason the mentors charge you is because they're going to teach you something, but there's got to be a value exchange. If you can't teach me anything, then I got to charge you for my time. But if you provide your time and you do work for me for free, well, you're exchanging your time and work, and I'll teach you. So there's different ways. You don't have to pay everybody. You can just do it differently. So invest in yourself. Those things. Invest, have fun, and and network a lot. That's how I was doing it.
Meet people, invest in yourself, not waste time, have fun. That's really some good advice, man. Because I think a lot of my listeners, a lot of people that listen, are probably in the low 20s, mid 20s, and I myself am in my high 20s. So I always like to see what advice you give your younger self, especially knowing what there is today. And that's good, man. Have fun, not waste time, because time is something you can't get back, right? I mean, but at the same time, you want to have memories, you want to have enjoyment, you want to have fulfillment in life. And the fulfillment when you get, I'm not older yet, but from talking to older guys, the fulfillment you get when you're 40, 50 and above, it's more with your family and the time that you spend, the quality time. But the fulfillment you get in your 20s is different. The fulfillment in your 20s is, the fun, the lights from, the partying, the this or that. That's a different, or it depends on everybody parties, but the fulfillment levels of what you spend your time on is different. I think you have to determine that quickly in your 19, 20-year-old.
And to follow that up, so you and me, from what I see, we have a different lifestyle, right?
Right.
Like you said, go have fun because you've had fun. Like me, if you ask me, hey, how were you in college? In college, dude, like when I was trying to do this, and if you really want to do it, I was cheap as hell. I was frugal as hell. Right. And I always paid myself first, right? Like I had odd jobs in college, whatever I had to do in college to make a little bit of money. But in college, I was always very disciplined on, hey, when I get a check, because I learned that from Robert Kiyosaki, have 3 piggy banks, and my little sister gave me 3 piggy banks. So whenever I made $1,000, I would take 10% goes to investing, 10% goes to savings, 10% goes to giving away. So before I pay anybody else, my bills, my rent, I was doing that. So I've always been very good at first paying myself and saving, and whatever's left is what I could go spend, right? But then I was always thinking, hey, look, if I'm going to do this business, and this is what you got to do if you're in this business is, hey, I could go buy a $200 bottle at the club, $300 bottle. I could go have fun and spend $1,000, or those $1,000 are going to get me 2,000 postcards that might turn into $10,000 if I did get a deal. Yeah. So I was always very conscious of, hey, yes, I could go have fun. For me personally, I could go have fun and blow a bunch of money. And if you go on a trip, it's going to be at least $1,000, even if you go on the cheap. I was willing to sacrifice, me personally, the fun times to save money to be able to pay the mentors, right? I spent over 40 grand in mentors. The only reason I was able to do that is because I saved a lot of money, right? Mm-hmm. So you got to understand, and you got to have a balance. Like, have fun, enjoy it. You definitely should, because I know I could have a lot more fun, like going on trips and stuff. But it's put me in a position where, these days I don't have a big lifestyle. So if I want to go pay cash for 2, 3 houses, I'll go pay cash for 2 or 3 houses and forget the hard money lenders because I don't need them. Right. So you got to have a balance on what you want. And you got to understand it's a different lifestyle. Everybody has a different lifestyle. You have a different lifestyle than I do. Right. Like my lifestyle, I'm chilling. Like if you see what I drive, what you drive, it's completely different.
Yeah.
Right. Well, how you party and I party is completely different, but I'm okay with it because it's just different lifestyles.
Yeah, I think that the key lesson there is like you got to figure out what's the fulfillment for you, and then you just got to act on that. But at the same time, don't waste time on things that aren't bringing you value later on in life. You understand?
Yeah.
So last question or two before we finish it up here, dude. I've asked this to pretty much everyone. What do you, in your mind, when you think of $100 million, in your mind, how do you get there? I know some people want it, some people don't. I get it, but let's put that to the side. Let's say someone put a gun to your head and said, "Yo, $100 million bucks. You gotta come up with a plan how to get there." Like, what do you think? Is it in real estate? Is there specific things? Is there like I don't know. Like in your mind, what does that look like?
Yeah, $100 million bucks. You're gonna have to do $100 million bucks. I think you have to do really big real estate deals.
Yeah,
it's not gonna be wholesaling.
No,
right? Wholesaling gets you to $1 million to $2 million. Maybe if you're really, really good and focused, we know some guys that might make income wise $10 million a year, but they're netting like 3 or 4, right? To $100 million, bro, you're gonna have to get into big apartment complexes where you could flip them, because that's what they do when a value add. They're really just flipping an apartment where you're, flipping it and making $3-4 million on one deal.
Right.
That's kind of how I see it. Besides that, you have to build a business that provides a lot of volume, and if you want to do that, you probably have to do an online business. But $100 million, to tell you the truth, you have to do something with either a lot of volume or the check has to be big enough to be able to get there.
Big money. It's big money.
Yeah, like you're just not. I don't know anybody personally that's gotten into. I mean, maybe some guys, but just by wholesaling or flipping more than $10 million, I don't know anybody. You might because you're in a bigger masterminds, but I don't know anybody.
But I don't think that the wholesaling is even close to get you that far. But I think that it could get you good relationships, good cash, good habits to be able to probably acquire more money through investors, probably acquire things.
Yeah.
But it's something to get the brain turning.
So what is your answer?
Good one. So my answer is, I think you can get to 100 million through a stream of multiple cash flowing businesses.
Mm-hmm.
So for example, wholesaling, let's say cash flows 500,000 a year. And then let's say you have a fix and flipping business that cash flows X. Let's say you buy into a mortgage company, cash flows X. You buy into my answer for 100 million is basically you get cash from a specific business, let's call it wholesale, and you start investing strategically in businesses in your lineage until maybe some big opportunities come up with, I don't know, other businesses that you understand. Let's say that I invest in a restaurant or something, but I have some kind of knowledge about the restaurant business or the car business. I used to work in the car business.
Yeah.
If I have cash and an opportunity comes up to invest in a car business that makes $5 million a year, cool, I would invest in that. So good question. But basically my answer is 100 million you can get to by investing in multiple different businesses that cash flow, which is kind of like a investing Warren Buffett-ish type method. But you need the cash and you need access to money pretty much.
You need to, and the business have to be scalable.
Yeah.
The issue is that a lot of businesses are not scalable. That's the main issue unless you're in tech. In tech, it's a software. If you build a software that's really good, and people are paying you monthly, then you can sell that software. The really big deal is, can you cash out by someone buying your company?
Yeah. And then that's what I've always thought of. And my partner, Lewis, when he first started working with me, he goes, I'm going to try to find a way to make this wholesale business sellable. And I'm like, I don't think it's possible, but let's, we could try. And he has a little formula there, but,
Yeah, I mean, you could say everybody buys on multiples. What are you gonna do? 3 times your free cash flows, and let's say you make $1 million a year wholesaling, you're gonna sell it for $3 million.
The way that we came up with to sell wholesale business is that it has to be combined with different businesses.
Mm-hmm.
So you got to have a wholesale, you got to have a property management business, you got to have a brokerage. The brokerage is the key, by the way. You got to have the brokerage. Then when you have all of those cash flowing, you really sell the brokerage with these different umbrellas. And brokerages sell at a 9 to an 11 multiple in the market. So
wow. Okay.
So actually, if you have a brokerage, you structure it in a specific way, you could possibly sell a wholesale. I'm not saying that's my end game, but basically just thinking a little bit.
Yeah, no, I mean, and it makes sense. It's like we're all trying to figure out how can we get to
a lot.
And then what's crazy for me is like, when you're, and I wish sometimes I could go back at 19, 20, you're like, yeah, I'm going to make 100 million, 200 million, 300 million. I'm going to be a billionaire. And then the older you get, hopefully there's a reason you don't want to waste time when you're young because you still have that energy. The older you get, you're like, holy crap, this is a little harder than I thought.
No, to get to 100 million, I mean, I would be extremely fortunate if that happens in my lifetime. But people underestimate how much these multimillionaires and billionaires to run companies and even assets and stuff. It's really not easy. There's never any beach things like that. Yeah. But Nelson, to like wrap it up here, so let's say you have no money. I want to talk to the newbies real quick.
Mm-hmm.
And then we'll wrap. Let's say you're new, you lost all your money and everything. You had a couple $100 and you had to get one deal. You had to get one deal or, they cut off your legs or some shit, Like what would you do right now? Like after coronavirus, let's say this episode goes out in a month. So things are back to normal. What would you do? What would you do to get a deal and to make some income and start supporting yourself?
Got it. If you have no money and like if you got $100, there's no way you're gonna do direct mail. There's not enough money to do anything.
Right.
With $100, you're barely paying for your dialer, so you really can't go cold calling. So the cheapest one, if you're gonna do some marketing, would be text blasting because that's cheap. But if you're really motivated, figure out how to buy a list of pre-foreclosures and go knock on their door. And I'm telling you, I feel like right now, if let's say you gave yourself a week, if you go door knocking for 1 week, you will get a deal right now. Free. And that's free. It's like, just go up to people and people ask me, what do I got to say? Very simple. Hey, my name is Nelson. I'm looking to buy a house in this neighborhood. Was wondering if you or anybody you know would be interested in selling. You ask enough people, would they be interested in selling? Someone's going to say yes. That's the only question you ever get asked. Hey, would you be interested in selling and getting a cash offer? Give yourself, hey, I'm going to ask 1,000 people that question. Someone's going to say, yeah, I would be interested. Are they going to sell it at the price you want? You don't know. But you get enough people, someone's going to say yes. And if you focus on beat up houses, someone's going to say, yeah, the house is a beat up house. And they're going to be like, yeah, I know my house is fucked up or beat up. Sorry. I'll sell it at a discount. Like that's pretty much it. Is that most of us aren't willing to put in the legwork. Like if I tell someone or my mentees, hey, this weekend I want you to go knock on 100 doors. How many people will go knock on 100 doors?
Yeah, not many.
Not many, but if you have no money, you got to put in the time, right? Okay. So that's what I would do. The other way, if you have no money, then you have to do a Jim Van Dyke, which is sell other people's deals, right?
Yeah.
Take your time, get on the phone, try to find who the cash buyers are, see what they're buying, and then try to connect them directly to a wholesale deal directly.
That's a good one. And I would say it definitely depends on the time of the market you're in. If there's a ton of inventory out there and there's a ton of wholesalers selling good deals, I'd probably go the buyer route.
Yeah.
If not, then I would do what Nelson said. But it's a beautiful answer, man. If you have a couple $100, $200, whatever, and you have no knowledge, find a way to buy a pre-foreclosure list. Or I think through the county, you can probably find them for free. I don't know.
You can.
But I'm sure you can do some research, drive to your county clerk, ask around. You can find something. Dude, and go knock on a few doors, man. Go knock on 100 doors in a week, 20 doors a day.
And I can tell you, a kid on Instagram did that exactly. He's like, what should I do, Nelson? Just a random kid on Instagram. He was 18. I'm like, yo, dude, you want to do something? Go out your door, go in your neighborhood and knock on everyone's door and say you want to buy the house. He did that. He texted me like a month later. Hey, Nelson, I got a house under contract. You want to buy it? I'm like, what? Sure. Well, I mean, I was really busy, so I didn't really follow up as the way I should. I should about that house. Whatever. He ended up selling to somebody else, made $20,000. I'm like, yo, how did you do it? He's like, I did what you told me. I walked around. This old lady lived in a house. She said, yeah, I'm going to sell it. She was like 80 something. She told me. She's like, yeah, I'll sell it. He got it for 150. He was selling it to me for 180. I knew I could resell it for 200. It was like in Coral Gables somewhere. But he made 20 grand literally just by going outside his door, walking around the neighborhood. Hey, would you be interested in selling? And found the old lady that was ready to sell.
Good, man. Fuck. You see, brothers, and this guy's 18, bro, and there's people probably listening to this, and it's not to like bash on anybody, but there's probably people probably listening with an education, with a good job, with 100K income.
Yeah.
Or whatever. And dude, a kid at 19, like, and I hear stories like that all the time. That's why I love doing the podcast. I love to hear these stories like fuel. But anyways, bro, this has been super fun. I'm glad I had you on. I know I think we've done deals in the past. I'm not sure, probably not, but we've seen each other at the masterminds, and I consider you a friend. So I appreciate you coming on here, man.
For sure. No, thank you for having me. And if you're gonna get into the business, just know it is possible to make money.
Hell yeah.
You just gotta stick with it. I tell people the only people that don't make money in this business are the people that quit.
Give up.
Is it gonna be hard? Yes, it's gonna be hard. What, you think it's gonna be easy to make $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 on one check? It's not easy. So put in the work, do the time. You will make money. Surround yourself with good people like Raul. Network with a lot of people, because when you first start, networking is very important. That's how I know a lot of my friends, and a lot of people know me. You network. And always be ethical in this business.
Yep.
The reason people are willing to do deals with me and JV with me and want me to partner with them is because they know. They just tell me. Sometimes they just tell me, like, "What, Nelson? Why do people trust you?" It's like, I don't know, because I'm genuine. Like, I'm not trying to screw anybody over. I don't need to screw you for some money. So make sure if you get into the business, the people that actually do this business are a very small circle. Yep. People that actually do the business. So make sure your reputation follows you where people are going to want to do deals with you. Because if you mess it up once,
it's tough.
People are not going to do deals with you anymore. I got one guy that screwed me over on one deal over like $500. I'm never doing a deal with that dude ever again.
Yeah.
Just because of his ethical of screwing.
And he's not going to be invited to your mastermind.
Oh, no, he's done. And he keeps texting me, hey, can you sell my deals? I'm not going to sell your deals. I don't care if I can make $10,000 off it. Like, you screwed it up.
Yeah.
So make sure you're always upfront with people. Don't screw anybody over for money. There's no reason to. So just go out there, work hard, get deals done, meet people, and, just learn, grow, be curious, and put in the work.
Nelson, dude, and thank you for that, man. And how can so I know you mentioned your systems. How can people follow you or learn more about you, or if they wanted to reach out, what would be the best method?
Yes, so I'm pretty active on Instagram. So just follow me on Instagram at I think I have here NPABON. So my first initial, my first name Nelson Pabon, my last name PABON. I don't know if you can see it.
NPABON 34. I like it.
Oh yeah. Right, so follow me there. If you have any questions, feel free to DM me. That's the best way. And then I'm also on Facebook at Nelson Andres Pabon. But Instagram is probably the best way to learn about real estate because I do videos and stuff there.
Yeah, he does a bunch. You're always posting a ton.
Yeah,
I'm like lazy with that. I don't like to post a ton, but I always see that you're always posting stuff and driving around at your rehabs and stuff. So definitely give Nelson a follow. And I'll put it in the show notes and everything. But again, dude, I appreciate you, man. And yeah, bro, let's stay in touch. Thank you, everybody, for listening.
For sure. When this is over, you're coming over to my place for a poker.
Yes, we have to do the poker. I'm kind of sad we haven't done it in a while. So
I know, but it is what it is.
All right, guys.
All right, dude. I'll talk to you later. Thanks.
Peace.
Peace.